Hello, everyone. What are the renunciate methods of the organized mind? How does experience continue after it has been filtered through a linguistic relationship? Now, after a person has realized they are a thought, they will realize the only realization left is to move beyond one's known limits. So it really doesn't matter who you are, where you are, what you think you are. There are limits that must be moved beyond. And that is the value and the meaning in human vision. You see, human existence may not have a purpose. It may be just something that's there. But human experience has purpose in accordance to what it sees. That means the moment the child sees the missing piece to the puzzle, automatically the hand will hold that puzzle piece to take it to completion. That means the nature of our intelligence is good. And the reason it is good is because it seeks organization and various states of completion. As if evolution happens is because a part of you is seeing something better. It's not just adjusting to change. It is which phenomena attracts your attention in this life. If the wrong phenomena attracts your attention, your material existence discontinues. If the correct phenomena attracts your attention, your material existence is amplified. I find that the material life is an opportunity for the immaterial life. We need matter to wonder about anything beyond it. We need the sensory perception to wonder about anything beyond it. And therefore, renunciation is the act of letting go. That means, imagine just hold something in your hand right now, any object that's near to you, now let it go. You have renounced this object by letting it go. You have, in some sense, now renunciation is of course much deeper. It has to do with the mind. So the mind has to let go of its subjective mask of objective phenomena. And that is not, I don't want to say easy or hard, that's just something that it's like you cannot expect a tree to give fruit until it is ready. Sometimes we have to wait for nature's command before we can act. Recently, I have gotten a recent revision of my own attitude, I can say. I realized that renunciation, at its ultimate form, in its purest form, was a vow. And a vow is when your mind decides to not respond to a certain objective motion of repetition. Some sages say habit is the decay of the mind. And so one has to wonder, what is decaying? And it tends to be the growth that comes from the new. Seek the new, and you shall find tomorrow. Seek the old, and you shall never see tomorrow. The life of man is lit with intelligence. You right now are a candle of consciousness. There's a unit in science where it's known as candela, and pretty much it's a square meter of illumination or something. I don't know the exact unit. It's more than a square meter, but it's just pretty much like how much a candle could lit a room being considered a unit. A sort of exposure leading to measurable reality, and that exposure is so critical It's as if on thin ice, consciousness has chosen to be a creature. The fact that the environment assists the psychology of who we are is a suggestion that the environment also evolves and adjusts to man. In some sense, as if the mind of man is not just in the brain of this creature, it is in the whole manifest sector, it is in the field of intelligence. So imagine right now your brain, which you think is projecting your mind, is actually your mind that has projected a brain in its own field of being. So this is the hilarious thing, where creatures, our whole species is getting tormented by the idea of an end, the idea of the inevitable, the sense of a death of a physical transition. And so, if there is death, one has to conclude what is dying. And it became very fascinating for me, because I realized that I cannot die, but I realized it indirectly. I realized if I don't know who I am, how can I weep over myself if I never saw it? So in some sense, I saw my unknown face in the mirror of existence. And that was the most liberating moment of my life, where I saw I couldn't see. When I saw the edge of what I knew. And I believe it was Andy Warhol, he said something like, when you go on the edge, you see things that you wouldn't have seen before. And similarly, when you reach the edge of the, I guess, analytical kind of intellect-oriented dissection of intelligent phenomena, you will eventually come to natural forces. So let me tell you something hilarious. When man goes to study man, he actually realizes he is studying the whole world. You know? But when man goes to study the world, he still sees the limitations. There has been certain moments where I have felt rhythms, secret rhythms of nature. These secret rhythms of nature are moments where it has nothing to do with your ideological constitution as a being. It has to do with how simply you are aware of your complex awareness. Pretty much life becomes a dance of phenomena, and you are witnessing it as the whole moment. And if I tell you, or if someone asks you how big is your whole moment, it has to do with the nature of awareness. Again, it has to do with the light of the candle flame leading to a certain range of illumination. Similarly, our intelligence is again a certain range of illumination of sensory data, sensory phenomena, and whatnot. I believe there's this book called Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. And in it there's I haven't read the book, but I saw the quote online. There's a quote where it's as if the author has written, "We enter this world and our awareness is like a handful of sand from an endless beach." That means, you know what's funny? You shouldn't worry about how your DNA influences your sight too much, because the variations are also ones that are added after existence. So you see, it's as if, yes, you do have a unique DNA, you do have a certain unique pattern of manifest intelligence. However, there are so many choices to make that regardless, it's as if you still have free will. So we can say the smartest and most incredible thing that the intelligence of this creature on the surface of this planet, the Homo sapien, has arrived to, it was a moment in its history where it chose to give itself a choice. And there is nothing more godly than making yourself into God. Let me tell you why. Because it gives you choices. So the same way God sees man is the same way our free will sees our choices. I find that every person has a story of justice behind their mind. And if this story of justice is based on reality, it will liberate the person. If it's based on their inner reality, it may lead to a sort of strange suffering. What does that mean? That means imagine a person who doesn't care for external reality because they feel that behind their internal reality is the only truth, as if God told people not to help their fellow members, imagine, and people who had could have helped their family members or whatever, instead they said no, the religious code says we cannot. So what it is whether we like it or not, whether you study theology or science or whatever ideology you study, the way you're choosing to actually hold on to the thought and the belief is emotional. And this is why so many, it's kind of funny to watch, atheists, modern atheists nowadays, are baffled about for example, Richard Dawkins is one that comes to mind, where he's baffled at the irrationality of certain people who have strange faiths in his mind, from Dawkins's view. And so let me tell you why people, regardless of how much you explain something to them, their choices arise from an emotional a justification of the moment. That means it's not just enough for something to be rational. You also have to feel like you can do the thing, or you feel that it can be done, or you have a sort of emotion. You know, when I look at the purpose of life, the way I find the modern world asks that nowadays is a little inefficient, because it's as if like what emotion should I buy in the future with my choices now? We're all opting into various modes of ourself. You know, it is very rare for a human being in modern society to wake up and not think about what's going to happen in the next moment or tomorrow or in the future. You know, it's very rare. Those people who can simply just be present in this world and appreciate its texture, its quality, those people, I find, their mind opens up to them. Their mind becomes their ally. Most people, their mind is not their ally. Their mind tends to even go against them. Whenever you have stress or depression, it's as if your mind, your major directing system is like not looking at the proper thing. It's as if the strongest man in the world, you know, feeling he can't lift a spoon, you know, because of his beliefs, man. Human beings, I noticed it. Let me tell you what's going on and what I feel is happening. And this is something that really is required to be spoken about. And it is the development of course, I'm going to speak about it in a unique way. So hear my words as if in the room of my context. Sometimes some things I say, they arise from their validity within my internal experience, and then I relate them to some sort of external existential value. Pretty much how I divide existence and experience is behind your eyes. Experience is the world. You experience the world in front of your eyes. The world exists. And so it is, in some sense, the journey of light in our eyes that has become the story of our identity, that has become the glory of every decision we shall make. It is the access of sight. And so the presence of sight and its awareness to itself is the divine miracle. It is the proof of the divine. There's nothing more divine than the awareness that there is awareness in empty space. That is phenomenal. It's as if we have mankind gathered together, united, and then found an audience with the Creator, with God, and said, God, thanks for making us all alone in this cosmos, because now we see the freedom from self. This world is not designed for eternity. It is designed to as a door for the eternal. One action that abides by your true nature will be more valuable than 1,000 artificial actions. The world needs the real creature right now. And so we forget to be human beings if we are so desire and fear are like drugs for civilization. They are factors of not control. You only get as manipulated as you stare at the manipulation. The mind of the person is multi-local. Of course, your physical body is in a singular dimension. So that means in my mind, I can move in any way I want. But in front of, like when I look externally, of course, like, every man has his dance. In Vedanta, one can say that I remember reading certain texts about certain yogis who they saw the material universe such as a distraction. That means in ancient times they felt purely as a mind being. This is why their imagination was real to them and the world seemed like a more spiritual place. But as we have kind of evolved throughout civilization, we have reached a time where materialism is required, just like putting your seatbelt on is required when you navigate in a vehicle of language. I have had arguments with what I feel to be Gaia, the soul of the moment, the personality of the planet, the glow of the galaxy. We human beings are storytellers. We start off as storytellers. And as we tell our stories, we enter those lives. And as we enter those lives, we realize our own power. And so I remember having a moment where I sat down and I thought of all religion, spirituality, all sorts of practices towards the unknown, all the ways that human beings have, in some sense, believe it or not, indirectly worshipped the unknown that holds their knowledge. And let me tell you what I noticed. I found God in a moment where God never existed. What I mean by that is I recognize the limits of language. From eons of amnesia, awaken moments that were never separate. I find pretty much life is not something where somebody could tell you one thing and that's it. It has to do with adjustment and it has to do with kind of piloting your attention. Now, the way you can pilot your attention, imagine that astronaut in space with the oxidizer in the back of its suit that helps it kind of, with this pressure system, move in the vacuum of space. So what we see there is that you can use what is given. You cannot access what was, and you cannot access what is not here yet. You only have what is given, and that is the value of the here and now. That this moment is the supreme. this very moment. It could be meaningless to you, it could be meaningful to you, but it is this moment where my phone rings. The warrior's last battle is to, after for eons of fighting in a certain mode of intelligence, it has to put the weapon down. And sometimes when you put the weapon down, when you put a kind of heavy reality down, you find a new light in your eyes. As if the hammer of rage was raised, or the hammer of chaos, the divine hammer of chaos was raised, but it never hit. It never came down. It was just raised. The concern was communicated. The actuality of the concern never came about. We human beings are value givers, and that's why I say we are creators. We give value to things. A child that holds its teddy bear, a teenager that holds its phone, hello? Hello? Sorry about that, guys. There was a phone call. I'm trying to get one of my films made, so that it's this important phone call that's occurring at 3 o'clock. But anyways, I'll get back to the talk. There's one great story about renunciation I can tell you. It's the story of these two monks, a junior monk and a senior monk. The junior monk is new to monk school. The junior monk is set to walk with the senior monk for the day. As they're walking and the junior monk is trying to copy the senior monk, they come across to this incredibly beautiful, attractive woman, and it's like raining a little, so it's like she has to get across this kind of giant puddle she can't alone, you know. And so what happens is these two monks that are passing by, the junior and the junior monk looks at the situation and says, okay, realistically, there's no way we can help her and still be true to the laws of the monastery. So we can't touch women. We have renounced women, for example. Renounced, not women, actually. We have renounced the desire to the devouring desire of the animalistic instinct has been renounced. So anyways, this is the laws of the monastery. You can't touch one. So this junior monk is like, yeah, okay, we're just going to keep going and moving along, you know. And then to his surprise, he sees the senior monk has walked to her, talked to her, and then in some sense lifted her up past her trouble. And the senior monk carries her to the other side and leaves her there. And then the incredible lady thanks the senior monk, and the senior and junior monk continue walking. Now the junior monk, ever since he saw this, it was as if he got an adrenaline rush, because he felt a kind of important code was broken, as if this guy's my senior monk, not even listening to the rules, this guy. And so in that moment, what happens, after 20 minutes of walking, the junior monk can't hold it in. He has to ask. And he looks at the senior monk and says, "Sir, how could you pick up that woman and carry her? How could you carry her and leave her there? You know, how could you carry her? How could you touch that woman?" And the junior monk is saying this with a sort of boiling up kind of frustration at how the laws of the universe are working for the being at the moment. And so the senior monk literally says something to this kid that is the moral of the story. And he says to the kid, the senior monk says, "I picked her up and I left her there, but you have been carrying her in your mind for 20 minutes. And what it means is that the true renunciation has nothing to do with physical reality. It has to do with your internal reality, and it has to do with you realizing how much of your attention throughout the moment is being occupied by a certain thought or a certain framework of how the world has to be. What that means is, for example, there was an object and you started calling it a cup, and then you thought forever till eternity this object should be called a cup. You had a sort of idea over matter, and this idea over matter is now limiting the matter to have new ideas. And this is it's not sad, but it's kind of like the comedy and tragedy of the era of idea worship we're in. It's as if we're all dressing up in costumes of unique thoughts, trying to fit into a system with positions with a vast spectrum, various hierarchies. And what we come to realize is that in the life that we're trying to get to, we're missing out on the life that we're having. And so civilization is not built efficiently, because every human being can live as a mind in this world rather than just a body that has a mind. We have to liberate the vision. It's as if like it's it's not something new. It's that when you have to cut the head of the snake. It's a military tactic. Military movies demonstrate this. That if you want to get something done, you got to go to the core of the problem. And the core of the problem has to do with the behavior of the human being, and the behavior of the human being has to do with the conditioning of the human being. And so if the conditioning system, if how the child is becoming a character in the world shifts, that storyline shifts for the child has access internally to new dimensions. Literally, your subconscious bows to you and moves aside, and the conscious mind and the unconscious mind become in some sense one moment. And that's when, in some sense, you become a creature who is beyond time. Kind of how Plato said time is the moving image of eternity. You become the eternity in which time is moving for you. And it's a very interesting experience because it's non-dual, and at most it can lead to great art. At least, not at most. At most it can take you beyond your beliefs, but Anyways, guys, I hope this talk has served you. Pretty much the idea I wanted to share is that we are trying to have organized minds in this world, but we tend to forget that sometimes we got to let go. It's not all about accumulation. And if we build a society and civilization that just wants to eat, it's going to miss out on sometimes not eating and not consuming the cultural program and just living a life where, when your last breath comes, you will in some sense be able to salute. That's the kind of life you should live, where on your deathbed your mind has done its final performance, and your kind of consciousness is slow hand clapping for how you lived this far. No man fails when our success is based on our eyes. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Much blessings and namaste.